Okay, I've got a story to tell, all because I know how much you enjoy long-winded stories. About 2 months ago, I saw this 1970s Califone classroom record player at the local flea market, and I need another classroom record player like I need a hole in the head. You can see all the ones I have here. However, this one came from my old elementary school, and it also had the name of my first grade teacher written inside the lid. Now, the bad news was they wanted $50 for this record player and a handful of educational LPs that also came from my old elementary school. What made it even worse is that the tone arm was broken, as you can see here. Well, I said to myself, well, I'd like to have this for sentimental reasons, but no way am I paying $50 for something with a broken tone arm. So I asked the people who run the flea market to call the vendor and let them know that the tone arm is broken and will you take any less. So she called the vendor, and the vendor swore that nothing was wrong with the record player, that it played just fine, blah, 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 and that she wasn't going to take any less for it. So, okay, whatever. Well, the other day I was by there, and of course the record player was still there, and I asked them to call again, and they did, and she admitted to coming by and looking at the record player and said that she saw where the tone arm was broken, but she swore it wasn't that way when she took it to the flea market. Well, I can believe that because kids and adults like to mess with stuff and they have no regard for other people's property. In fact, the owner of the flea market told me that kids are all the time coming down there and jumping on the mattresses and on the furniture, and the parents just stand back and watch and think it's the cutest thing in the world. Now, if I'd have done something like that, I'd have gotten my fanny torn up right there on the spot. My parents wouldn't have thought it was so cute. But anyway, the lady that owns this said that she'd take $30 for the record player and the records. Now, granted, given the condition it's in, that's about $25 more than the thing's worth, but since it came where it came from my old school, and knowing that I'll probably never find another one, I went ahead and bought it. Now, the good news is I placed a wanted ad on the antique radio forum, and someone replied that they had a tone arm assembly off of a junk Califone record player. They said it's the correct blue one, and they said I could have it for $5 plus shipping, so I can't go wrong with that. So he's supposed to be sending it to me. Also got in touch with someone from a local school district to see if they had any more of these old record players laying around. And unfortunately, I was told that no, there are 0 record players remaining in the Meridian Public School District, and that all of that type of stuff goes to an electronics recycler. And then he added that he didn't understand how the one that I found made its way off campus. Well, at that point, I'm thinking, oh crap, they're going to think that this is a stolen record player, and they're going to come knocking on my door wanting their phonograph back. So I just smoothed it over by saying that, well, perhaps it was something that was not on inventory and was given away or thrown away, or perhaps it was sold at one of the surplus property auctions 20 years ago. So, hopefully there won't be any problems. Apparently now they don't have auctions anymore. They just send everything to a recycler, which is a shame because all that happens there is the stuff gets crushed and melted down and sent to China. I think a much better option would be to let people have the stuff that could actually get some enjoyment out of it and use it. Like me, I'll take this record player and refurbish it, and it'll be good to go for another 40 years. But with everybody so-called going green today, I really hate that phrase, but you know how it is. All of these schools and other organizations are just sending everything to a recycler, and that's the end of it. Chop, chop, melt down, burn, burn, and that's it. Okay, while we're waiting on the tone arm to arrive, we can at least do some other work to this record player and get everything else straightened out on it. Another problem this thing has is, notice how the turntable platter is wobbling. I don't think it's actually the fault of the platter. I think it's the spindle bearing that's loose. Maybe a little JB weld will take care of that. If not, these 4-speed Alliance drive mechanisms are fairly common. It shouldn't be too much trouble to find one. Yeah, we have it turned on. The platter is rotating very sluggishly. At least the amplifier works. Okay, let's open it up and see what we can do. This is the standard Alliance drive mechanism, and our motor is very much so stuck, and you can see that this spindle bearing assembly is what is loose. Yeah, maybe we can JB weld that back down to where it'll be solid. Here's the underside of the unit, not much to it. The drive motor and the little amp board. This is the baby model 1420K that has the 5-watt amplifier and rear firing speaker. The 1430Ks that look just like them on the outside have a 6x9 front firing speaker and a 10-watt amp. I think the first thing we're going to do is remove the amplifier chassis and go over that real well. New capacitors, control cleaning, etc. And then we'll move on to the drive mechanism. This thing obviously took a major hit. You can see where the motor board is bent. The earphone jack is not in straight. But, you know, whatever it is, what it is, I'm just glad to have found this thing. And hopefully I can get it running again. Now to remove the amp, we obviously have to remove the control knobs, and then these 2 nuts, and the amp should just come out at that point. Here's the amp chassis exposed, and for power, this particular unit has a separate winding on the motor field coil that doubles as a transformer that provides a low AC voltage to the amp. Okay, I've cleaned the controls and replaced every capacitor except this 2000 microfarad Mallory capacitor, which is still good. 2 more capacitors read higher than normal. This 2 microfarad capacitor was reading 0.22 microfarad, so it's about dried up. And what's the brand on this thing? Cosmic, I believe. Some off-brand capacitor. So let's put the amp back in and see if it still works. Yep, amp still works good. And this wheel is going to have to eventually be rebuilt. You can see all the cracks in it. It'll work for the time being, but like I said, it will eventually have to be rebuilt. Seems like every one of these Alliance drive wheels that I run into they always harden over the years. They'll still drive the turntable platter, but they make sounds like a scraping noise as it rotates, so I'll have to send this to either Ed Crockett or the Voice of Music site and have it rebuilt. It'll be about $30. Okay, concerning the drive mechanism, we have everything topside for the exception of this spindle bearing, and that's going to take some extra special care. But everything else topside is lubricated. We now have our motor apart that's in serious need of lubrication. We'll now clean it out and re-lubricate it with the zoom spout oil, and then it should run a lot better. Okay, motor's cleaned, lubricated, put back together, running fine. We now have some JB weld slopped on around the spindle bearing assembly. We'll let that dry for about 24 hours or so, and that should hold this in place where it won't wobble back and forth. And then I think once we get that done, we'll have to send the idler wheel off and have it rebuilt. And then we'll have to wait on our tone arm assembly to arrive, and then once that takes place, we can put it all back together and hopefully have a working record player. Okay, the JB weld is set, and we have the spindle bearing cleaned and lubricated. Everything's turning freely, and there's no wobbling from side to side now. It doesn't look that pretty, but it serves its purpose, and who's going to be looking under the platter anyway? Okay, we're now at a standstill until I get the replacement tone arm in and until I get this cracked up idler wheel rebuilt. But I have the platter back in place, and it has a little bit of side to side movement, not like it had before. And it turns better now. Some of these platters were a little bit off balance or didn't rotate evenly to begin with, so but this one does pretty good now that I have the bearing assembly JB welded in place so it can't move. Okay, I'll sign off for now, and when I get the tone arm and the idler wheel in my possession, then we will resume this. Okay, we just got a package in the mail from a gentleman on the Antique Radio page by the name of Tony V. Big thank you to him for sending me a tone arm for the Califone record player. Now let's open the box and see what we've got. And there we are. So we'll just install this on our record player, and it will be one big step closer to being operational again. So what we'll need to do is remove this old tone arm, and that's accomplished by removing this clip here. And we'll need to remove the cartridge plug-in socket and the cartridge cable from the original tone arm and mount it in the new tone arm, and then reinstall everything, and we should be good to go. Okay, we have everything installed, but our tracking pressure is 10.6 grams, which is more than I'd like it to be, so we'll have to adjust the counterbalance spring at the rear of the tone arm, which is a little bit tricky on these models. Okay, there's the spring, and you see it's placed in various notches to adjust the tracking pressure. Moving it up further this way decreases the tracking pressure. Moving it back down here raises the tracking pressure. So we'll want to use these pair of small pliers, or as small as I have handy, and grab this, pull it off, stretch it up to another notch, and carefully put it in place. Okay, I stretched the spring as far as I could. I was able to get it down to what you see here, about 7.7 grams, which the recommended tracking force for an 89T is in the 6 to 8 gram range. Still a little bit heavy, but that's the best I can do. Now I could probably replace that counterbalance spring with something a little stronger, and I could probably get it lower. And I do believe that after 30 or 40 years, those springs become weak over time, so that could be part of the problem. So now all we have to do is wait for the new idler wheel to arrive, which should be tomorrow if all goes well, and then this thing should be complete. Okay, for right now I have the old bad idler wheel installed just for testing purposes. Now keep in mind, the 1420K doesn't have nearly as powerful an amp as the 1430K, and the 1420K also has a rear firing speaker, which seems kind of stupid. I guess the reason they did that so the operator could have the controls facing him and then have the speaker facing the audience. It's the only reason I can come up with, but it's working. Here we are with a 78. I just received this little box in the mail from thevoiceofmusic.com. It's where I get most of my cartridges and idler wheels and other vintage phono parts. Gary is a very reasonable vendor, and he'll work with you. He'll bend over backwards to help you. So let's open the little box up and see what we have in it. We have an 89T cartridge, and we have our rebuilt idler wheel. Now, had I sent the old idler wheel in for rebuilding, it would have been $28 plus shipping. To buy the wheel outright, it was $36 plus shipping. But by the time I packaged the old wheel up, took it to the post office, and paid the shipping to send the old wheel, plus the gas it would have taken to get there, I really wouldn't have been saving that much money, so I just went ahead and ordered the wheel outright from him. Now, on some wheels, he doesn't offer that option, so you have no choice but to send the old wheel in, but a lot of these more common idler wheels, he has those in stock that you can purchase without having to send the old wheel in. Here's our new wheel installed. It's nice and rubbery versus the old one that's all slick and cracked, so it ought to perform much better now. And here we go. That you're in love with me. It's as sweet as candy. Its taste is on my mind. Here we are with an LP. And this record is beat to heck and back. I will say this thing doesn't like records with a lot of bass, because whenever I try to play Vogue by Madonna, it skips all over the place, which is not the fault of the cartridge. It's the way these tone arms are designed. I think the old metal aesthetic tone arms track better than anything, so this player one day might get a tetrad cartridge that tracks better, but for right now the 89T will work.
If you don't get a letter, then you'll know I'm in jail. Tootsie, don't cry. Tootsie, goodbye.
Okay, that ought to about do it for the Califone record player that was once property of my elementary school. Considering the hard life that this thing has lived, I'd say that we were very lucky to have brought it back to the degree that we were able to bring it back. Okay, there you go. Thanks for watching, and more to come later. Oh, I almost forgot. Along with the record player, I've got some educational records that also belong to my school. Let's see what we have here. We have Multicultural Rhythm Stick Fun, and we have Getting to Know Myself by Hap Palmer, Easy does it. What is this? Singing, moving, and learning with Thomas Moore. I am special because I'm me. Alphabet Soup. Learning basic skills through music. Moving by Hap Palmer. Songs for the Whole Day, Thomas Moore. The Hokey Pokey. Yeah, wonderful top 40 stuff here. And we could never let this video end without rolling some multicultural rhythm stick fun. So to wind this video up, we'll roll some of that, and I hope you enjoy it.
Roll, shake, shake, right, shake, shake, right, and count uno, dos.
1, 2.
Shake, shake, left, shake, shake, left. Uno, dos. Shake, shake, right, shake, shake.
And who could ever forget?
Hold yourself, just give yourselves a big hug and repeat after me. I love myself.
I love myself.
I feel so good.
I feel so good.
This is my nose.
This is my nose.
I smell with my nose.
I smell with my nose.
I blow my nose.
I blow my nose.
I have holes in my nose.
I have holes in my nose.
I love my nose.